Hey, Wolfpack Nation, this is Scott Wood with Scott Wood's One Man Wolfpack. We have a very, very special podcast today. It's our first one coming back since the season had ended last year. I was thinking about the best person I could possibly bring on, and a lot has happened since the basketball season has ended. So the only person I could bring on is the biggest NC State fan there is. He also happens to be the coach of NC State baseball. He's been there for 25 years, over 900 wins. I tell him every time I see him, he is hands down the best coach I've never had. I'd like to welcome Coach Elliott Avent.
Hello, Scott Wood. How you doing?
What's up, man?
How you doing?
I can't complain. I will say I'm going to have to start a list of people that have struggled with technology. You may not be ahead of Coach Tao, but we eventually got you on. We had to figure some things out, but I'm glad you were able to get on.
Monty's still number one, right?
Monty's definitely number one. It took a full hour just to get him on. We started at a phone. We went to a computer. We went to an iPad. He couldn't even figure out how to get the camera on. So we literally had to fly to Florida to get him on.
Hey, that's the only thing in the world he can do. He can unite people. He can make people smile. He can make people laugh. He can play golf, tennis, basketball, football, you name baseball. He can do it all. So that's the one thing that Monty can't do. And I think that's okay.
Yeah, well, you're definitely better than him so far. You're definitely better than him at technology so far. So we are predominantly a basketball podcast, but we're going to do some baseball stuff. Obviously, we know your passion for basketball and the other sports, so we'll dip in that as well. So my first question is, and obviously I've heard the story, other people may not have heard the story. Where did your love for NC State really start? Because I want, hands down, I'm telling everybody right now, there is nobody that loves NC State more than this guy. Where did that passion start?
Well, I grew up, Scott, about 20 miles from the nearest city, and this is a small city, Rocky Mount, North Carolina. So it's 50 years ago, right? 50 years ago, maybe 55 years ago, let's say. It's a small farming community. Everybody farms. That's all there is, right? Nobody goes to what we call town. Nobody goes to the city of Rocky Mount. You eat every meal at the kitchen table, either yours or friends. I just walk into your house and show up for what we call supper, and I just sit down and eat with you. And so back then they had country stores, which was really a grocery store. All the farmers come in for lunch at the country store, to get a Pepsi or and a pack of peanuts at break or whatever they do, and everybody sits around a coal stove and they talk a little bit of politics, which they could care less about, and then they talk sports. And there were only two schools at the time that drew any conversation, and that was State and North Carolina. Fortunately for me, I grew up in a predominantly NC State community, NC State fan base. Everybody loved NC State. Everybody had the same values. And I've been an NC State fan since I was probably 5 or 6 years old, whenever I knew what a sport was.
There you go. So I remember hearing the story from you. Whether or not we're allowed to say it is another thing. So you could tell me if we don't want to say it. So tell me, there was a story you told me about you and maybe a friend that took you down to Hillsborough Street after they had won the national championship. Give me kind of the background of that.
Well, this is 1974, Monty Tao.
There you go.
He's always been my hero. You know what I'm saying? We're close in age. We call each other twin because a lot of people say we look alike because I think height and whatever age. But like I say, small town. I was national championship 74. I was 18 years old. Okay. And they won the national championship. I'm so excited. My dad's so excited. Matter of fact, we had to get everybody, we got behind in the one game. So we sent my mama back to the bedroom because she hadn't watched the other games with us. I mean, me and my dad were going crazy. The whole community's going crazy. And I wanted to drive to Raleigh for the celebration. And my dad says, "You've lost your mind," right? So we had one friend, Ransom Jernigan, who was my best friend, ironically, 15, 20 years older than me. And my dad's best friend, 15, 20 years younger than my dad. But he's both our friends. He's a big farmer in the community. And I worship the ground he walked on. So Ransom called and said, "Jack, my dad, can I take Elliott to Raleigh with me?" So me and Ransom get in the car. We drive to Hillsborough Street, and we have the time of our life. It was just so much fun.
I can only imagine, especially back then when they're winning national championships, and I mean NC State is literally the cream of the crop. So I couldn't imagine being on Hillsborough and just enjoying that experience. I can only dream of it. So kind of talk about your journey of becoming a head coach. What kind of clicked in your mind and said, I want to coach baseball for a living? What kind of go through that journey and what made you decide to do that?
Oh Lord, it's a long, and I was playing semi-pro baseball, so let's not confuse it with professional baseball. That's what they played back where I grew up, because a lot of people didn't even go to college. Some people didn't graduate from high school. So you had a semi-pro league, which was made up of people in towns, and we played on Saturday to Sunday, sometimes a Wednesday night or something. And they called it semi-pro baseball. And so I was on that team for a long time, and I was trying to make a living. And I knew I didn't want to farm, had no idea what I wanted to do. I tried the banking business. It was, I was bored stiff, right? I was like bored, and my boss knew it. I tried the insurance business, you know what I'm saying? And I hated picking up the phone to call Scott Woods, say, Scott, it's Elliott. How about if I come over and talk to you about some insurance, right? Just what Scott wants, right? So I couldn't do that today. And I actually went to an insurance school down in Tampa, Florida. And at the bar that night, I bumped into the manager of the Fort Lauderdale Yankee team and A-ball. And we hit it off. And so I went and traveled with them for a couple of weekends, took BP, took infield. Obviously, I couldn't play, dressed out. And I'm like, I got to get out of the insurance business. So I went back and got out of the insurance business the next day, started coaching at Division III, North Carolina Wesleyan, and for a legend named Tony Guzzo. And I followed Coach Guzzo to Virginia Commonwealth University, where he became the head coach there. And that's where I developed a relationship with Tubby Smith, who I saw Tubby the other day at a golf tournament, and I hadn't seen him since VCU. And I think he's one of the most honorable, best people in your business, the basketball business. I really like Coach Smith. And so I did that. Then I went to William and Mary as an assistant for a couple of years, Lewisburg Junior College, where I worked for the Hall of Famer Russ Frazier, who turned 90 the other day, and he's still doing great. And I got a lot of Coach Frazier gave me a lot of responsibility and really gave me the confidence that I could coach. And then Ray Tanner hired me on his first staff when he took over for the legendary Coach Sam Esposito here at NC State. And Valvano and Coach Esposito got me a job at New Mexico State as a head coach. And they, in a meeting in Coach V's office for 30 minutes, gave me the confidence that I could go somehow make this thing work. And I went to New Mexico for 8 years. And then when Coach Tanner went to South Carolina, then I was fortunate enough that Les Robinson, another basketball legend and sports legend here at NC State, saw fit to give me an opportunity to come here and lead a program that I'm so much in love with and feel such a responsibility for carrying on for two, like I say, legendary coaches and Coach Sam Esposito and Ray Tanner.
So it's safe to say NC State's glad that, even though it may have been a long journey, that you ended up at NC State. So it's definitely worked out for all the fan base, that's for sure. So I do remember you saying something. We were at dinner one night, and you said something about Coach Valvano and who was it? Coach Esposito? We're sitting in there. Yeah. And as soon as you left, they kind of looked at each other and said, that guy has no chance at New Mexico. Kind of give that story as well.
Well, Mario Mocha, who is the athletic director, ironically, at New Mexico State. Now, he's a Hall of Fame player there. I was coaching a summer league team in Waynesboro, Virginia. We won the league. We went down to Boardwalk in baseball in Orlando, Florida, and spent like 4 or 5 days playing the Cape Cod and other leagues and the All-Stars, and I was coaching that team. And Mario wanted me to come be the head coach at New Mexico State because they didn't have a coach. And they'd had a coach every year for like the last 4 years. They were getting ready to drop the program. So Mario wanted me to come to New Mexico State. He had it all set up, and I had never heard of New Mexico State. I'd never heard of New Mexico. I was a country. I couldn't name probably but 30 of the 50 states. And but long story short, Coach Guzzo said, hey, let's give them a call. They wanted to interview me. and Coach Valvano and Esposito got me the job over the phone. I didn't even take a visit. That's how desperate they were for a coach. And I went in V's office with Espo, and for 30 minutes, they told me how prepared I was because I knew I wasn't. And I walked out feeling like Joe Torre or, Jimmy Leland. I walked out feeling like the greatest manager in the world. And years later, Coach Esposito said, Elliott, when you walked out with your chest out like Chuck Amato and you thought you could really go do this thing at New Mexico State, he said, V looked at me and said, he ain't got a chance in hell. And and had not they built me up, which shows what confidence can do for a player. So as a coach, I remember that today. You've got to give a player confidence. And I remember Chris Corciani telling me sometimes if he was missing shots, or Rodney would tell me the great, I guess Scott Wood and Rodney Moreau, the great two shot makers in NC State history. And Rodney or Chris would tell me when they were missing shots in a game, V would just in the huddle, keep shooting. Yeah. You're going to make the next one. You're great. So as coaches give players confidence to go out and perform, that's what they did for me. And I've never forgot that.
Yeah. So there's you've hit on. So I've got 3 keys to being a good shooter. It's footwork, balance, and the last one and most important is confidence. So confidence goes a long way. If you believe you're good at something, you're probably going to be pretty good at it. So I can't agree more there.
Before we move on, let me tell you guys a little bit about our partners at BetRivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up with BetRivers yet, now it's the time because they're offering $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart is that they require just one play to turn your bonus into cash money. With their new Rush Pay instant approval, withdrawing your winnings is safer, more secure, and more reliable. With basketball season tipping off, get into the action by going to betrivers.com today or by downloading BetRivers iOS app. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
So you've kind of had 2 of the greatest coaches of NC State history almost mentor you, and Coach V and Coach Esposito. Kind of tell what that meant to have those 2 guys in your corner trying to help you and guide you to become a really great coach.
Well, it was a different era back then. Like, seems like we have a lot of meetings now. There were no meetings back then. If there was a meeting, it was in Coach Esposito's office at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning when everybody got to work. You'd have a cup of coffee and you go in Coach Espo's office, and that's where you'd learn how to coach, and that's where you'd learn all the intricacies of how you get the job done. It would be Bob Guzzo. Think about the legends in that office. And I just sit there. And if I ever said anything, Coach V would correct me and let me know I was to listen and not talk, right? So it was Coach Valvano, Coach Esposito, who everybody says is the godfather of all NC State athletics. He was the assistant coach for Coach Sloan on the national championship team. Yeah. Monty says he never would have played without Coach Esposito telling Coach Sloan that the midget can really play, right? That's what Monty says. Coach Esposito said, hey, Norm, you better watch the midget. He can really play. And so everybody owes a debt of gratitude to Coach Esposito, including myself, Ray Tanner, George Tarantini, Bob Guzzo was his office mate. They were in the same office. We would all meet down there every morning. Frank Whedon would walk in. And that's where you'd learn everything about coaching. I miss those days. I wish those days still existed because the mentorship and what you learned if you would listen and pay attention. And I was fortunate enough to be around those great coaches. And like I said, Coach Guzzo, so many great coaches, Tarantini and Richard Sykes. And you learn so much from so many people. Kay Yao, I was on the same hall with Kay Yao, and I learned so much from her. And and the great coaches through time, Herb Sindat, Mike O'Kane, like I said, Coach Robinson, Les Robinson, who hired me. It was a mentorship completely. Everybody mentored everybody. And so that's my probably any success I've had is the good fortune I've had to be around people that mentored me. Chuck Amato, Bob Guzzo, those guys. And still today, I still keep in touch with Bob Guzzo and Chuck Amato a lot. And I still rehear the words of Coach V and George Tarantini and Coach Esposito today, the things I do today are things that they taught me in the past. And I'll never forget it, and I'll always cherish it. And I'll always know that any small successes that I've been able to share are because of the people that came before me.
Yeah, and I think too that's a lot of things that make a great coach. And one of the things that I've learned is it's not solely, a one-track mind. It's you've been around so many great people, the K Yaos, the Espos, the Jimmy V's, and you're able to take all the things that really made them successful and implement it into your coaching style and kind of use it on the baseball world. And I think that's one of the things that when I've had really, really good coaches, it's kind of hearing them and hearing their mentorship. It doesn't come from necessarily one guy or two guys. They're able to pick the brains and absorb almost like a sponge all the great things that they've learned over the years and implement it. It doesn't have to necessarily be a basketball football coach for a baseball coach to be great. It's all the same realm. It's kind of like you said, you got to give the players confidence. It's kind of coaching them up. Obviously you have the tools to be a great baseball player, but you also got to be able to lead and coach them that you can kind of grab things from other sports, not necessarily just from baseball. So that's awesome to hear you say that. So one of the great experiences of my NC State history was in 2013. We had a guy by the name of Carlos, Trey, Brett. There was a few of them. And it was one of the first times that we had been back to Omaha in quite some time. Kind of touch on that 2013 team and what that kind of meant for the program moving forward.
Well, this program has been so great for so many years. And like I said, Coach Esposito built the program. Mm-hmm. Coach Tanner got it going at another level because they had more teams in the conference and everything changed nationally and within the conference. So Coach Tanner kept it at the top of the conference. And then I came along and the conference once again expanded and things became different and all this kind of stuff. And programs kept, building,
bigger and better.
Yep. And so it became difficult there in recruiting and keeping the program where it was. But we were fortunate enough, and it goes back to recruiting. It goes back to Coach Hart. I've had some great recruiters here. Billy Best, who's now with the Atlanta Braves, and I'm sure he's enjoying the Braves' success in the postseason here. And Billy Jones. And then Chris Hart comes in. And Chris Hart comes in 18 years ago. And I think he really stabilized everything. And he really helped take this program to another level, in my opinion, with the recruits he was able to get here, despite the challenges of the new stadiums and the bigger stadiums and all this kind of stuff. Chris Hart did an unbelievable job. I think all of us should owe him a big debt of gratitude. He brought in Carlos. He brought in Trey. And Tom Holliday, the legendary Tom Holliday who was here for years. He helped bring in Carlos as well. And but that recruiting class was unbelievable. And Brett Austin, who's coaching with us today, he just left the Washington Nationals to come back and coach here at NC State. And he was afraid to go tell the manager what he was going to do. And all the hitting coaches and assistant coaches with the Washington Nationals, they said, are you crazy? If you got a chance to go back and coach and where you played in college baseball, the way college is now, you should jump at the chance. So we were fortunate enough to get Brett Austin back here a couple months ago. And so that class is unbelievable. Carlos finishing top 3 for National Player of the Year as a freshman. Trey Turner, everybody knows his success story. They're playing Game 5 against the Giants tonight. Yeah. And he's just his success and his fame has really jumped off the billboard, so to speak. And but we had great players, Logan Ratledge, Jake Fincher. We had so many great players on that team. And that team really was very, very talented and fortunate enough to go to Omaha. And I think I still say there was a brick there that I found when we went back in 2021. There was a brick there. It's about that big at the bottom of a pad behind home plate. And somehow the ball hit that brick and ricocheted to home plate. Or I still think we beat UCLA, and I think we win the national championship. But you always think you're going to win it when you don't get to play it out. But that was a magical team in itself. And those players have gone on to have such great success in professional baseball and life as well.
Yeah, no, and that's one of the things looking back. I mean, I was fortunate enough to go to, two NCAA tournaments, a Sweet 16, had some good ACC runs. And that was a lot of fun for me, just kind of enjoying that experience. I remember one of the kids, it might've been, was it TCU? Who was the Texas team we played? They kind of gave us a run. I don't know if it was super regional or the regional, but
in 13 Rice. It was Rice.
It was Rice. That is exactly who it was. Me and this kid got into a beef on Twitter because I said something about him, and all I remember is all these NC State fans coming to him, to help me out. So I'm glad we ended up beating them, because it'll look really bad when I was talking smack to some Rice guys. So yeah, I'm glad we ended up getting through that.
Like 17 innings or something. The game had a power rain delay. And that was the legendary Wayne Graham coach of that team. And ironically, when we went to Omaha last year, I looked up having coffee one morning, and somebody tapped me on the shoulder. It was Wayne Graham. And he sat and we had a conversation for he wrote me a nice letter to let me know how proud he was that I was still coaching, because he coached forever and he did a lot for our profession and a lot for our sport. And so Wayne Graham and Rice.
Yep, that's awesome. So we're going to move on kind of to this year's past team. What was so special about that run? And I think this kind of goes into the question of, and this kind of translates to all the sports at NC State. This team here, and I've said it before, it's the good teams that I've had, they don't care about their individual success. I know a guy has my back. I know a guy cares about my well-being more than his. And that to me has always made a great team. And I think it's very similar for baseball as well. You gotta, it's hard to sit on the bench and really cheer for someone else's successes and wait for your turn, but that's what really, really makes a good team. Talk about this year's past team and what made them such a good team.
Well, Scott, you're exactly right. What you said, and I've said that to our team this year, because we have a lot of players this year and a lot of new players, and they all want to play. You know what I'm saying? Everybody wants to bat third and play shortstop, right? And you want your success, and you can't really see how this guy may be better than you. And it's how those players handle it. So that last year's club was a small club. We didn't have many players. Matter of fact, the last 2 months, matter of fact, Austin Murr's favorite statement, the kid we had from Minnesota, who's a great player, our Gold Glove first baseman, didn't make an error for 2 years. How about that? Phenomenal player. And he said we're 9 players from 9 states. And I didn't realize that, but we played the last 2 months, the same 9 players from 9 different states. And that's who we were. And so every day you came, you didn't feel the pressure, I have to perform or I'm not in the lineup. But it's how those players, it's how the D'Angelo Giles, Noah Souls, it's how those players, Danny Carnazzo, how those players handled not playing, but supporting our team and being ready if needed. Because obviously they were all needed in that Pac-13 game, and Sam Highfield looks up and he's at first base. Austin Murr had to go to left field. I mean, D'Angelo Giles is playing third base and got the only RBI in that game off Rocker. So that was the strength of that team last year, and they loved one another. A lot of those guys have been together for 3-4 years, and it built such a relationship with each other, because the strength of a team. They love their school, and they all want to come back. So I know they love their school. That's the thing I'm most proud of. Trey Turner putting on that headset, the thing when they had the champagne party when he won the World Series with the Washington Nationals. They still love their school. Dalton Feeney from North Dakota loves NC State. I mean, he pulls for him in football, basketball. He watches every game when he's in North Dakota now if his school's playing. So they build that relationship, and you hope they play for their coaching staff because they like playing for them. There's been a trust and a relationship. You hope to have that. But players really play for each other. They win for one another. They build a bond that is so close they can overcome anything, such as a 21-2 drubbing at Arkansas in front of 12,000 fans yelling, pig suey or something every time they score. And when you overcome that, it's not coaching. It's not the fan base. It's the camaraderie and the bond that you have with each other and the confidence that you feed off from one another. And that's what last year's team had. They were as special a group as I've ever coached, and they were very similar to the first team I had here, which again was a small number of players who were great players. Luis Figueroa brought his family here from Guatemala yesterday, and he played first base on that magical team my first year, and he wanted his family to meet me. We went out to dinner last night to the players retreat and just had a ball, and we talked about that special camaraderie of that team my first year here, and it really reminds me of last year's ball club.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things too that makes, you know, playing a sport and being at NC State so special is, for example, my wife played softball. You know, the other day at the football game, I'm running around with Andrew Simpson. Like, it's such a tight-knit group that, you know, you establish that bond with I mean, you're always together. I mean, obviously you're going to have that connection to your sport, but you know, I had study halls with Andrew Simpson, with Ashley. Shout out to Ashley Turlington, who was our tutor for, I mean, literally, you know, 5 hours a week. I mean, we were together. So it's just kind of that NC State connection and the athletes just always being together and having that same, you know, goal of trying to strive to be the best they can be and try and help their team win, kind of like you've mentioned. And then, you know, you leave and it's all about, you know, coming back. KB said it the other day, equipment manager for NC State basketball, been there forever. He said, because I was kind of asking him, I was like, you know, KB, how long you got? You know, I was curious, like, how long you plan on hanging around? And he's like, you know, I'm not sure about that. But he said, the one thing that he's enjoyed, it's not necessarily the in-season moments. Like, he loved going to the tournament. He loved all that. His favorite thing is seeing NC State alumni come back, grow as men, have family, and seeing them grow and seeing the impact, you know, that NC State had on their lives. And, you know, now they've become, you know, great fathers, great mothers, great wives, great husbands. And that's the one thing that I've, you know, talking with a lot of people and a lot of coaches is, you know, in season's great. Obviously you want success. Like, you got to have success. That's the job. But at the end of the day, you know, you're also grooming them to become men, to become women, to send them out to the real world, you know, become really good people. And that's one of the things that I've slowly learned about NC State is that it's, you know, it is about sports and it is about winning. Like, it is. But at the end of the day, NC State does a really good job of grooming them to become, you know, at that next level. Because, you know, sports lasts for, I mean, I played 8 years professional basketball. It only lasts for so long. And someday you're going to have to give it up. So you got to become a good dad. You got to become a good husband. So that's one of the things that NC State's really taught me. And I'm thankful, you know, be around guys like you, Monty Taus, Bobby Lutz's, the guys, KB's, the guys that have really kind of influenced me to become a better man and strive to not only, you know, be a basketball player, but, you know, a good person as well. So I thank you for that. So
you're mentioning some good names, I'll tell you. And I just have to take this time. When you say KB, you know, the legendary Kurt Brown father time, if you want to call him that.
Yeah.
And D.D. Hoggard from football. They are the two people here in my 25 years of my year as an assistant that, to me, epitomize exactly what you talk about. Yeah, they love the moments. They love the special moments. But they love seeing, as I do, the alumni come back from all sports. You know, the relationship I have with KB and D.D. Hoggard is so special. And the relationship they have with former players is probably better than probably most of the coaches, because people really love those guys because they know how much they cared about them as people. And it's exactly right. You think about our friendship was probably spawned. Like, I went to as many basketball practices as I could. I go to as many football practices as I can. And I don't care about the X's and O's. I don't care about boxing out. I don't care about screens and pick and rolls. I could care less. I want to see how your coach and your assistant coaches coach you and coach your team and try to build a team. I want to see how the football coaches treat their players and how they're trying to build a team, because there's something either subliminally or that I can notice that might make me a better coach. And that goes back to that mentorship that I miss so much we have in my early years. And one of the best things that happened to me, and I think you tweeted this out, somebody said you said something about it, but when I came back from the USA, we played our last game, and y'all had a night before I couldn't go to, and I called y'all and we all talked. When I came back and y'all all came and probably stopped practice and hugged me, and then Jordan Collins wanted me to come talk to the team. These are guys, every one of you guys, I was at so many practices watching y'all sweat and play and got to love you guys because I could see you in a different light in coaching you. And our relationship just became so close, sitting there talking to all those guys and see who they were now. Richard Howell, how he is as a person, as a father, and just talking to Richard for a while and his travels over in Israel and wherever he played. Those is what KB talks about. Those are the special moments and the special times that we reflect on as coaches.
Exactly. So we're going to you kind of got into a little bit of my next part of it. So we're going to move into the basketball stage of it a little bit. Talk about always being at the Dell. You mentioned going out to, Carter Finley in the practice facility with football and just learning from, the coaches. What sparked that love for basketball that you really, started to enjoy it and become a fan?
Well, basketball is how everybody in my age and probably, further along, but that's how you became an NC State fan. That's how you decided who you be, was basketball. This has always been a basketball school. It's always been basketball first. Basketball, nobody picks to be an NC State fan because of NC State baseball. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And so everybody forged their union with their school based on basketball. And mine, fortunately, was NC State. And so I just always had a great love affair. And when we dressed in Reynolds Coliseum, and our locker room was Reynolds Coliseum, it was right beside basketball. And I would always go in and talk to those players and build relationships with them because I'm not coaching them. So you can build almost a more relaxed relationship. They can be more themselves around you than maybe they are around their coach themselves. And so basketball has always been my sport here. And but I love football as well. I always said I think I should have been a football coach. I think the difference you can make in games sometimes as a football coach. In a baseball coach, it's all about practice. During the game, you better let them play. But as a football coach, I almost feel like we can make adjustments and things, which I watch V do in basketball. The great thing about being here for a year with Valvano is his preparation. After every game, he would go to his office and stay there till no less than 3:00 in the morning preparing for the next game. And he allowed me to be in there for that. Partly because I went to Emilio's and Char Grill and brought food back with Derek Whittenberg. So that's partly how I got to be in there. But I got to learn, and sometimes we'd be in there when the sun came up as he's preparing for the next game. And so I love basketball. It's always been a thrill of mine. But people my age and even younger, basketball is probably what endeared them to NC State in the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to give my TBT story. So we've already touched on it a little bit, and I've already said my story on another podcast, so it's already no knowledge. So it's kind of like he said. So we're just stretching. We're stretching, getting loose to go through practice for the TBT for that $1 million take-all tournament that didn't end up great for us, but it's okay. And all of a sudden, coach comes in, Team USA uniform and everything. Just finished. Is a game, right? Just finished up from a game. Comes in and we're all stretching, getting ready, and everybody stops. And I mean, this isn't like a handshake, good to see you. This is everybody stops, goes and gives Coach Avent a hug. Like this isn't, a handshake guy. Everybody goes and gives him a hug. And I think that just kind of speaks volumes about what Coach Avent means, not as a baseball coach, but as that mentor, as that, person that can kind of teach us and what you've meant to not only just the baseball side of it, but the basketball side of it. And then we're sitting there, we're playing. Ashley Alfin was there. I'm not going to mention the other one because I don't want to get consent. So there was another big NC State alumni there with his son. And we're literally playing 5-on-5. Like it's Ashley and then them just sitting there talking. And we're playing 5-on-5, and all of a sudden I'm looking over there, and you start to take off your jersey. And I'm like, okay, what's going on over here? I'm starting to get a little interested. So then I finally come out because I'm old and don't need to be playing, practicing for an hour. And you had taken off at this time, said bye, taken off. And I sit with Ashton. I was like, what was coach doing with his uniform? And you had given the uniform to the 12-year-old boy. And you had never met him at the time. You didn't know who it was. That had been the first time you had been introduced. And then go out to the car and you give him some more Team USA stuff from the car. And, I look at this and I kind of tell everybody, when NC State baseball gets brought up and Coach Avent, and I'm like, it's so much bigger than baseball. Like the influence that you have, you to me, I mean, that's a Team USA jersey. I get that there might be, 2 or 3 at the house already, but that's amazing to just give that to someone that you had just met. And you have no idea, because I went out to eat with them afterward, and the kid, the only thing he could talk about was how awesome that NC State jersey was. He wanted to go into the restaurant wearing it. And that's one of the things that, people, outside of the athletics, they see, they get to see this, they get to see the media side of it. They get to see, every once in a while a podcast and, you as a coach will open up a little bit and me as a player will open up, but they don't see the behind the scenes thing. And that's one of the things for me, when I get older and I'm, telling my kids stories about you and about, the Monty Taos, it's about how good of a person you were and how you just loved NC State so much that you just gave, a kid your jersey that you had just played in the game, training all the guys to go play in the Olympics, a jersey. So that was, for me, was an awesome moment to be able to kind of experience that and see how great of a person you are, and just kind of learn the passion that you've always had for NC State.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and for you to even notice that, because I did it very like I didn't think anybody saw it. I knew that jersey would mean so much to that kid, and then we just finished our last game, half week travel through all the Appalachian League. It'd been a summer of traveling, and to show y'all how special y'all are, I haven't even been home yet. I've been gone for 3 weeks, hadn't even been home yet. And the first place I went was the Dell Center to see y'all. That's how special y'all are as players and what y'all mean to me, right? So that man and his son happened to be there, and Ashley introduces us. And he said something about the kid loved baseball, and, he thought it was cool that I was a USA coach, but yet he knew I was an NC State baseball coach, and he loves baseball. So it just kind of made sense. That would mean so much more to him. But when I got in the car, when we left the hotel, they loaded us with so much stuff they'd given us. And I thought, is this going to go home and sit in my closet, or is this going to make a 12-year-old kid smile? I remember one time I went to see the Rocky Mountain Leafs play in Rocky Mountain. It was the biggest thing in the world to me. Class A baseball, Rocky Mountain. And I got an autographed baseball. I won a raffle, an autographed baseball, the Detroit Tigers. I thought it was the greatest thing in my lifetime to win that baseball when I was probably his age. So, and I think all the great players that I got to witness, they've always given back in ways that people never know, whether it's an autograph, whether it's a smile, whether it's a high five. I've watched the great guys. Russell Wilson. I've seen Russell Wilson sit there and sign autographs forever after a game at Carter Finley. And so we always learn, whether you're learning from one of your players, whatever. And but I appreciate you saying that, because it was neat. But the story I want to tell you is the reason after 3.5 weeks on the road, before I went home, I stopped at the Dell Center to watch y'all practice. Tells you how much I think of every one of you players that was there that night and playing with the TBT, because I wanted to see you guys. I miss you guys. I learned a lot from you, and my relationship with all of y'all is very, very special.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming for sure. And that's one of the things my dad always told me. He kind of said, one day, because I think it was after a game or something, and there's a ton of people out, and they all wanted pictures. I didn't play very good. I think we might have lost. And my dad kind of looked at me. He said, do you ever get tired of it? And I said, sometimes I do. And he's like, well, I'll tell you this. He's like, one day, no one will know who you are. He said, you never know the impact that you will have on, one of these kids. And to this day, I'll have, I was out eating Mexican the other day, and all of a sudden this big tall girl comes up to me. She's probably 16, so it made me feel a little old. She's like, I want to show you something. And I'm like, okay. And her dad come up and they show me a picture that I took with her at a game in pregame warmups. And they're like, you have no idea what this meant. Like she had put it on a wall, like all this stuff. And just kind of looking back on it, it's one of those things that you never really know the impact that you have, but like what you did just made the day of that kid. And just the little things like that. I mean, that's worth it. And looking back on it, that one day that my dad said, remember, enjoy it, because one day they ain't gonna remember you anymore. So enjoy the moments. That's one of the things.
Tell your dad there are certain people like Scott Wood, they're always going to remember. I tell Chris Corciani all the time, Chris, they don't remember you anymore. And yet we go out to dinner the other night, and I'm kind of crowding the guy in a restaurant. We're waiting for our table at the bar, and I'm crowding the guy, and I said, hey, I apologize. I'm a little crowded a little bit. He said, that's okay. You got Chris Corciani with you. And I'm like, and so even though I tell them they're going to forget him, they never do. And the greatest story I remember is me, and speaking of Monty Tower earlier on, Monty and I and David Thompson are at a Panthers game. And Derek Close got us tickets, and we're going to be in his box. And we get there early. We're just going to have fun. And walking into the Panthers game and going down the field for a while, everywhere we went, the heads that turned, Monty said, hey, watch this. Let's step back a little bit. Just walk behind David and watch the heads turn. Like, is that David Thompson? Is that David? Like David is probably a couple years older than me, and he can't go anywhere. So people like you, Scott, Chris Corciani, Monty Tal, Tommy Burles, and David Thompson, you're not going to be forgotten here at NC State. I promise you. You'll be 60. You'll be my age, and they'll still say, that's Scott Wood, one of the best jump shooters we ever had. And by the way, in that practice at the Dell Center, the funniest thing is I'm sitting with Ashley, and you would take some of the craziest, wildest fall-away jump shots, and he says, watch this. Every one of them went in that night. I don't know if you remember that. It was unbelievable. And I watched you for so many years here, but here, 10 years after you played, you can still hit that jumper. What do you say? Balance, confidence?
Balance, footwork, and confidence.
There
you go. If you got all three, you're going to be a great shooter. I can promise you that. So anybody looking to be a great shooter, balance, got to be on balance, got to have confidence, you got to have great footwork.
Now to our next sponsor. Need a local real estate agent? As we know, the real estate market is crazy right now. Maybe you have questions, or you just need an honest opinion from a trusted real estate professional to ensure your best interest is protected. Whether you're buying, selling, investing, call Reef Ivy at Dogwood Properties. For a seamless home buying and selling experience, give Reef a call. He's special to our audience, and if you're considering the possibility of buying or selling a home, call Reef at his personal cell number. It's 919-995-3111. And again, that's 919-995-3111. He's the best in the triangle and a personal friend. Please give a call to Reef Ivy for any questions.
Here we go to the next segment. Okay. This is, I do this every time. I've kind of changed the question since last year. One of them is the same. I always ask the same question. They're kind of fun questions. You can have fun with it. It's nothing too serious. So five questions to kind of end us. So the first question is, you can have dinner with any two people, alive or past, that you would have dinner with. Any two.
They would be my dad, who passed this January 30th, and Yogi Berra. I think if I could get me and my dad and Yogi Berra together for dinner, I think we'd have a ball.
That'd be a good time. I can already tell you. So here's the next question. So the one go-to spot that I say near campus. So near campus. So we're talking, maybe Western to Hillsboro, maybe a little bit Aden Ferry. best restaurant near campus. So where would you go if you had a go-to restaurant? I know this is hard, and a lot of people don't like me asking it. One place that if you had to pick.
Well, I went there last night. It was Gus Guzzler and Players Retreat. The PR was I took the team before we went to the 13 Super Regional, I believe, before we went to the World Series, or maybe. But I know you said one. So sometimes when people say, like Mark Packer asked me to name my Mount Rushmore, and I gave him like 5 or 6 people, and West Durham say, no, you get 4. Elliott, I know you don't know there's 4 presidents on Mount Rushmore, but I can't say the Players Retreat without saying Mitch's Tavern, because Mitch, that's where we went when we were in college, and it's still here. Mitch's Tavern and then Emilio's, which, those 3 places for me are synonymous with NC State.
Yeah. So I know it's definitely a hard question, because I had Coach did the same thing. He said Clues, because Coach took me to Clues. He introduced me to Clues Cloning. And there's just so many good ones. I mean, for me, when I grew up.
Now I got 4. I got Mount Rushmore. Clues is in there. Dan Clues is the best, and that is the best lunch spot. Dan, the chicken Philly, everything he makes. I got the Mount Rushmore. Clues is in my Mount Rushmore.
There you go.
Is right.
There's a ton of good ones, that's for sure. Okay, so third question. It might be an obvious one. It might not be. Your greatest basketball memory from NC State?
It's got to be the 74. It's that run to beat UCLA, who had won 7 national championships in a row. The greatest of all time, probably John Wooden. You know what I'm saying? They beat us by 18 in St. Louis in December in a game that was staged because we couldn't play for the national championship in 73. To beat UCLA in that game is that in the overtime thing to beat Maryland at 103-100 or something, beat Maryland in the ACC tournament final when only one team got to go. It's got to be the 83 run was awesome too. And that's magical as well. But 74 for me, just the whole thing was unbelievable.
You can't go wrong with that. Anytime there's a national championship involved, you can't go wrong with that. So what is the best advice you've ever received, and by who?
The best advice I probably ever received, and I've had so much. Like I said, I've been so fortunate. But we'll keep it to coaching, and it was Coach Esposito and Coach Valvano. I could give you many things they told me. Coach Valvano would always say, before you say anything, I could be wrong, because you don't have to know all the answers like some people think. You don't have to know it all. So I could be wrong, but this is what I think. But Coach Esposito told me when I was an assistant for Ray Tanner, he said, Elliott, I want you to think like a head coach. So think about what Ray Tanner's got going on today. Think about all the things he has to deal with, whether it be scheduling or meetings he has to deal with, or parents or players. Maybe there's some players that aren't happy that you can go solve that problem. I want you to think like a head coach every day and what you can help Ray Tanner do, but you got to act like an assistant. You can't act like you're the head coach. You can't want to be there. You got to know your role, stay in your role. It's kind of like what you said about players a while ago, accepting their role, but, always think you're going to be the guy that plays, right?
Yeah.
Always be that guy, because you're going to wind up playing, whether it be through injury or whatever. But he told me, I'll never forget it. He said, think like a head coach, but act like an assistant.
Yep. So kind of building off that, and it's kind of funny you said that. So mine that I received, I don't know if it might have been Coach Lutz. I say it to everybody. I call it control what you can control. You can control your work ethic. You can control being on time. You can control your attitude. You can control being a good teammate. You can't control playing time. So a lot of people get out there and then they start blaming the coach. And my mindset was always just work harder, just do what you can do. And if at the end of the day, you gave it your all, so be it. So that's kind of funny you said that, because it's kind of on the same part of it, especially that second part. So last question, your favorite memory as a coach. It's going to be a hard one. Favorite memory as a coach.
I think it has to be that first year in Omaha, you talked about that 2013 when we beat Rice and Brian Adams squeezes that ball in left field in a 17 inning, rain delayed for 2 hours. Yet we come back. No, I got something better than that. How about that? That was a special moment. My special moment in sports was this. Okay. We go to Omaha. We have a great run. We go to Louisiana Tech, great place to play. Great teams there. Louisiana Tech was awesome. Their crowd was unbelievable. Alabama was there. It was a great setup for a regional. And then we go to Arkansas and come back from that disastrous first game and win the next two. We go to Omaha and we win that 1-0 game against Leiter. And we know at that moment, we know we're going to win the national championship. There's nobody there that can beat us. You can see it in our players' eyes, and we know. And then we get the news at 1:30 in the morning that I got to get all the players out of bed, get them in a room, and give them the news of what was going on. And I can't even replay for anybody how disastrous that was. I can't share with you the hugs, the tears. I finally told my assistants, I just gave them a head nod. Let's get out of here. Let's let the players grieve on their own. Sometimes it's easy to grieve without people standing over you. And we went outside and just waited for like 45 minutes. And they stayed there and grieved and whatever. And then they came out because I told them to handle it like men, even though we think we were wrong. We think it was a poor decision. And how it was done was absolutely disastrous. But we told them to handle it. Your legend will be how you handle this, not what actually happened. That will be what the story will be. So they came out and asked me permission, because I told them I didn't want them to leave the hotel room and the hotel. And they said, Coach, can we take one last walk to the stadium as a team? And I thought that was so respectful and so cool. And I said, yes. But so from 1:30 in the morning till we got off the bus at Doak Field at Dell Park, I never saw a player smile. Not once. I never saw any smiles. And when we came back to 2,000 people who had no idea what time we were going to get back, it was the most special moment that I've ever had at NC State as we walked on that field and people were up there cheering for these players and thanking these players. And I hear stories from it wasn't like it was just college students out there. There were my college, one of my college buddies, Anthony Blackman. I was with the Miracle League. I went to a gala for the Miracle League, which is such a wonderful organization, the other night. And he was there. Tony Withers was there, who helped start the Miracle League with Robin Rose. The people that were at that event that night, and for the first time, Scott, since 1:30 in the morning, when I had to deliver the news about our fate, the first time I saw our players smile and start to heal. And that was my most special moment by far since my wonderful return to NC State.
Well, that's great. So that's pretty much it. But I have to ask one more, because I posted on Twitter. I was like, any questions for Coach Avent? And then the one that I continuously got that I got to ask is, what's the update on the stadium?
Well, hopefully, Ben Broussard, head of the Wolfpack Club, Boo Court, athletic director. We've had many conversations and many meetings on this, and they are committed to making this thing happen. Hopefully, we'll have an announcement sometime in the near future about a fundraising campaign. We're out currently right now fundraising money for the renovation of Doak Field at Dell Park. It's going to be beautiful. We've got drawings, we got renderings. Boo has hired a firm who has done a marvelous job at putting up something that we all can be very, very proud of. And I'm talking about the former players that keep up with this program right now. The way this school and this program is still followed by Mike Colwell and Alex Cheek from the '68 World Series team, Francis Combs, Freddie Combs, all these guys. Buddy Green went out to Arkansas, had the World Series with us, former football coach here and defensive coordinator at Navy for all the years. The way this program is still followed and still cared about, that I think they're going to be really tickled with what we're going to put in place here, and hopefully we can announce it soon. And we're currently fundraising money so we can announce this campaign to renovate Doak Field at Dell Park. And Scott, it's going to be awesome. And
well, you guys,
former players, current players, future players, this program deserves it. I'm really proud of what Coach Esposito built. Ray Tanner took to a different level, and then what I've maintained through these years, the consistency of this program, the respect of this program, and how our players have carried themselves both on and off the field has been a proud moment for me to reflect on, and just how our players conduct themselves.
Well, you guys deserve it. And I know a lot of fans out there don't even fully, realize that when you're getting recruited, facilities is a big deal. Like, I mean, NC State basketball to me, I've been to over 14 NBA facilities and done workouts there. NC State basketball, when I was first coming out, this is 10 years ago, had one of the best basketball facilities out there. And it's hard to recruit with, you got the Alabamas, the LSUs, and some of these programs that just have some, Major League Baseball style facilities. So you guys definitely deserve it. And it just shows, obviously we've got good facilities, but not, ideal for what is going on now, that you guys are able to recruit, you guys are able to have, the success you guys have, even though you don't have, what necessarily an LSU or an Alabama has. So kudos to you guys. And I just want to thank you for coming on the show. I know this is one of the ones that I definitely wanted to do. It's not necessarily all basketball, but, everything that's been going on with the team of last year, you can arguably say that, the national championship teams is what people remember NC State for. But I'm going to tell you right now, from what I've learned and how I feel, NC State has been putting back on the map, not because of a basketball program or any other program. It's because of NC State baseball and what you guys have done with the College World Series, and kind of obviously how it all went down. And, obviously now's the time to act on it. And you guys have blown up NC State in ways we can't ever imagine. And it's safe to say, and you kind of said it, I think if we get one good break, whether it's 2013 or this past year, we've got a couple of national championships, and there's no doubt in my mind about that. And I know there's no doubt in your mind. So I appreciate you coming on and taking the time out of your morning to spend some time with me.
Hey, Scott, this has been my pleasure, my privilege. Trust me, seeing your face, seeing your smile, your smile, it's always been on your face. Like, it's not just being a good player, it's how much fun you have at playing, and you always had fun. And that's what sometimes we forget because it's so hard. And you always had fun, which made it fun for your teammates. You were a great teammate, and you made your players around you better, how you approach the game. So it's good seeing your face, seeing that smile, hearing your voice. And I love seeing that jersey behind you, which gives
I got my wife's too, so I can't forget about her.
Okay. I didn't
my
see
big
that.
head just covers it.
Don't get me in trouble with her. I see hers now. But anyway, it's awesome. It's been fun talking to you. It's always fun when I'm around you. And thanks for having me on.
No, I appreciate it. Anytime we can have an NC State legend on here is my treat. So obviously NC State basketball is firing up. This will be released a little bit later. So prime time, we'll have that fired up in the next episode. I'm trying to get Richard Howell on here. So we're slowly working. We'll get back into this basketball season, but I appreciate you coming on, all the things that you've done for NC State, all the people that, obviously not necessarily just the baseball program, but all the programs. You've had a big impact on their lives. We appreciate it. Your love for NC State is contagious, and it's carried on to me and my family. My daughter's named Raleigh because of NC State. So I appreciate all that, and go Pack.
Go Pack. See you, Scott.
Thank you.
Bye.